Mrs. Bettinghouse?
Here.
Mrs. Miller?
Here.
Ms. Housefeld?
Here.
Let the record show all 7 members are present. Members of council, what is your pleasure on the approval of the written minutes of the February 25th council meeting?
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettinghouse?
make a motion to approve the written minutes of the February 25th council meeting.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
Motion by Ms. Bettinghouse, second by Ms. Housefeld to approve the written minutes of the February 25th council meeting. Are there any remarks? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. This item did not make your agenda because I didn't get the email until after I had already made them. But everyone should have a copy of ordinance number 6, which is an update to the codified ordinances that Heidi passed along. Is there a motion to place that on the table for the next council meeting?
Mr. President,
Mr. Ray Culberson.
I'll make a motion, we put ordinance number 6 on the table for the next council meeting.
I'll second that.
A motion by Mr. Ray Culberson, second by Ms. Bettinghouse to put ordinance number 6, 2021 on the table, which is a codified ordinance update. Are there any remarks? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. We'll move to reports of administrative officials. Mayor, Mr. Stuchel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't have a true report for this evening, but what I had requested to review, there was already a motion put on the table to have an ordinance placed for the agreement or contract with the Village of Elmwood Place to provide emergency medical services to them and allow for billing of said services. We forwarded the contract that we had drafted on our end to their village solicitor, who had returned the redlined item, which I gave you copies of, which is actually a little easier to follow. In doing so, one of the big changes that they had was a certification that was at the bottom portion, which basically is requiring them to certify that they have the funds to pay us, which was not in our contract, which I actually like the fact that their solicitor added that particular item. So they are in a position to move forward with this. So the changes were minor in wording. There is one, Valerie had reviewed this, and there is one particular item it's easier to find on the redlined item, that on the first page at the bottom in the blue section where it says Elmwood Place is entitled. So we are going to change that wording, maybe permitted or something that just sounds a little more palatable. So the intent of this, even though it does state a 3 successive 1-year terms, in meeting with them, this is not meant, even though it states that, this is not meant to be a long-term fix for their department. This is basically meant to allow for us to recover, some of those costs. And again, we are going to be doing all of the soft billing as well, which we would retain. But again, this is not a long-term fix. We're not bidding to take over their entire department by any means. This is strictly to allow for us to bill them directly for our responses, as we had discussed before. So there's not any major change to this contract other than the certification portion, where they have to address the fact that they can afford to reimburse us for what they're billed for.
Mr. President,
Mr. Tversky.
I guess for Valerie, this Elmwood Place is entitled to renew this agreement for 3 successive 1-year terms. Then same thing that we have to agree to too. So if we think we're getting a raw deal, we're stuck.
Mr. President, I know you addressed Valerie, but there's, on the second page, basically, either party may elect to terminate the agreement by 6 months advance written notice to either party.
And then also, it seems like police are going out there an awful lot. Are we going to follow up, maybe charging for police runs too?
Mr. President, that's not permissible in our mutual aid agreement. The only thing that's permissible in the mutual aid agreement is a contractual agreement for EMS services. We can't charge for fire. It is strictly stated. But I will tell you this as well. You may say that our police are responding to Elmwood just as much. Their police are coming in to our community as well. It is a very working relationship that we get the necessary backup that we need on demand as well. So, but we cannot bill them for the mutual aid for police or for us going out and fighting a fire. The only thing that the mutual aid agreement allows for is, again, for a contractual agreement for EMS services.
Any other question?
So,
All right.
Mr. President, so
Mr.
basically, just to clarify, since at the previous meeting, the motion was already placed on the table to put an ordinance out that I don't need to do anything else, correct? I mean, I'm providing you, though, all with to review what is in the contract. We will make the changes to the wording of entitled, but as far as I'm concerned, I feel comfortable with what changes were there, and I just want to be able to move forward with this at the next meeting.
Yeah, we might as well just, since we're here, is there a motion to place the ordinance on the table just to make it official again?
Mr. President,
Mr. DeVerke,
make a motion, to put the ordinance on the table for the agreement with Elmwood.
I'll second it.
a motion by Mr. DeVerke, second by Mr. Ray Culberson, to place the ordinance on the table to get, for the contract for Elmwood Place Emergency Services. And are there any remarks? Not all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Now we're official again. That's it then?
Mr. President, I have one last request.
Okay.
I'd like to ask for a motion to go into executive session to discuss collective bargaining.
Mr. President,
Mr. DeVerke,
make a motion, to go executive session, then the meeting for collective bargaining.
I'll second that.
a motion by Mr. DeVerke, second by Ms. Bettinghouse, to go into executive session at the end of the meeting to discuss
Collective
bargaining. Are there any remarks? Clerk, will you call the roll on the motion for executive session?
Mr. DeBerke.
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culverson.
Aye.
Mr. Schuldmeyer. Mr. Bob Culverson.
Aye.
Mrs. Bettinghouse.
Aye.
Mrs. Miller.
Aye.
Ms. Housefield.
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Council will go into executive session for collective bargaining at the end of the meeting. Is that it then, Mayor?
Yes, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Mr. DeVerke.
John, I know 6 months, a year ago, the Airbnbs were a hot topic. Were we doing anything with them yet, or?
Mr. President,
Mr. Stuckey.
that is the, I'll let Valerie even follow, but that is the next agenda item with laws, contracts, and claims to address that as well. So I know that we were scheduling a meeting, but whether or not we can piggyback on any of that or whether that's too much for one meeting. But yes, that is an issue that still needs to be addressed. So I'll let Valerie kind of comment on whether or not she's ready to.
I don't think I'm not going to be in a position to go forward, excuse me, this month, but we can schedule a meeting, sorry, for next month on the Airbnb.
Okay. All right, I'll tell you. There's a report from the auditor then?
Yes, Mr. President.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am sorry that I am still unable to attend meetings. I have been going into the office a few days a week for about 4 hours each time. I had a procedure today to alleviate some pain, so if this works, I may be able to do more in the week. I worked with Mayor Stuchel this week regarding Councilman Taberke's suggestion for transferring money into the Capital Improvement Fund and Mayor Stuchel's idea of creating a new fund for the employee accumulated sick time. Both ideas are great. Council can decide on how much they want to transfer into the Capital Improvement Fund, and I will create an ordinance. On this ordinance, I would also like to include setting up a new fund for accumulated sick time and the amount council would like to transfer into that fund. Speaking of accumulated sick time, I have had multiple requests from employees to cash sick time out, and after this week's payroll, it will be running low. I would like to request an additional appropriation of $30,000 for this line item. This can also be included in the same ordinance. Finally, I want to let council and the administration know that I will be transferring $500,000 from the reserves into the general checking account. It is not unusual to do this at the beginning of the year since most tax money does not come in until later. I will monitor the checking account, and if I can move money back into reserves, I will. Thank you, Mr. President. That concludes my report.
Thank you.
Steve, just would discuss those funds now, or want to wait?
Yeah, I would think we should if it needs to go on the table.
I talked to the fire chief tonight. He's saying next year it's going to be either a pumper or a ladder wagon. Pumpers, I think it's like $600,000. Ladder wagons, $900,000. I believe there's $600,000 in that fund now, if I remember serves me correctly, look at today. So So I say we put $400,000 in the capital equipment line item, our fund. If everybody's agreed to that.
Mr. President,
Mr. Bob Culberson.
Don, I thought we were talking also about police vehicles. I mean, is that going to be included, or are we just talking a one-off for the fire?
Mr. President, is it okay if I? So as far as what's due next year, basically, because of our ISO ratings, basically we have a replacement schedule for fire apparatus based on how we're scored and graded for our rating. So we try to follow that just so that way we get the most points. The point in this idea is that, again, we'd be looking at, there's a potential, one of two things, just what we would be doing, whether we replace our frontline engine, because basically you get 10 years to get full credit, which we would need to be looking at. Or at this point, there's also a possibility that we may be looking at trading in our ladder truck. The reason being is that we get 20 years as far as that, point-wise. What the thought being is that there could be the trading in of the ladder truck and actually buying a rear mount straight stick single axle ladder truck, where basically quint. So that would be our first line apparatus that would respond. We're researching those ideas, but yes, we do need to start looking at speccing that out so we can report back to council once we've determined what would be able to be the most effective way for our fire department to respond, and go from there. But that would be necessary. But as far as I know, the service department would need to be looking at a dump truck for next year, and we would look at the potential idea of maybe the potential of looking at purchasing additional cruisers. At this point, I wouldn't want to make an exact commitment on that to what we're doing. We could potentially be able to offset that a little bit and not have to purchase 2 more next year. We want to look at how the hybrid vehicles are able to be utilized at our department before we make a decision on the exact purchase. As you can see, I'm not real pleased about it, but the 3 new cruisers are still sitting because of the back order of equipment to outfit those vehicles. So once we have the idea of whether or not those are suitable vehicles or whether we need to look outside, could potentially carry through next year, but I will let you know. But yes, that is a possibility.
If we put $400,000 in, it'd be over $1 million in there. And Brian, I thought he said $800,000 for the ladder wagon. Jonathan's talking about trading it in. That's the most expensive piece. So there'd be money left over if we do need cruisers or a dump truck. One other thing, Valerie, I don't know, it was always my idea, set these funds up. And I don't know if we can put an ordinance form or what. At the end of the year, John would figure out what interest we would earn on that money, and that interest would go in their line item automatically. Is that something that can be done automatically, or is that got to be passed every year?
I'm going to need to take a look at that, and I can get back to you.
Well, that way it'd be a way of letting it grow every year too.
Yeah, I will look into that.
Thank you. So does everybody go with 400, or should we go 500? And we put over $2 million in reserves last year.
Mr. President,
Mr. Bob Culberson.
I think 500 is fine.
I would agree with the 500.
So make a motion, put an ordinance on the table, put 500,000 into the capital line item, equipment line item.
Yeah, I'll second that.
A motion by Mr. DeBerke, second by Mr. Bob Culberson, to place $500,000 into the capital equipment line item. Any remarks? Not all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered.
Then on the retirement payout, I'll call
Well,
it.
we might as well. It's all going to be.
It's
on the
all-
same-
yeah. Peggy's asked for another $30,000 in that line item this year. Jonathan, maybe 100,000, you think?
Mr. President, that was actually what I was going to suggest. So that would, I'm totally agreeable to that idea, so.
So make a motion to create a new fund for employee retirement payout, whatever you want to call it. And to put $100,000 in a line item. And also, Valerie, if we can look at putting the interest back into that fund too.
All right, hang on one second. Mayor, did you say that in her report that could go on the same
Yes.
ordinance? Okay,
Yes.
I thought so, okay.
And the additional appropriation for the sick time payout could be the same ordinance too.
So we're just adding that to.
We'll take a vote on
All
the
right.
line
Motion by
item.
Mr. DeBerke, second by
Fund.
Mr. Schultmeyer to also place the $100,000 into the retirement / payout fund.
And creating the line,
And
creating the
a
fund.
line item. Are there any remarks? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered.
Yes. And also on that ordinance too, add the $30,000 additional appropriation to that, the payout line item.
Yep. All right. All right. All right, who's on first?
Need to take a vote to put that additional $30,000 on.
Okay.
You seconded it,
I thought
no-
that- Okay, so is that's a separate? a
Separate
wholly
item
separate-
from the
okay.
100,000, still same ordinance.
You gonna second that one again? All right. So a motion by Mr. Berkey, seconded by Mr. Schultmeyer to add the additional appropriation of $30,000 onto that ordinance as well. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. All right. Now I think we're caught up. Thank you, sir. All right. Law Director, Ms. Van Valkenburg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to thank the mayor for covering most of my report. On top of that, I would like to go into executive session to discuss ongoing litigation matters.
Mr. President,
Mr. DeBerkey.
make a motion to go into executive session at the end of the meeting for ongoing litigation.
I'll second that.
A motion by Mr. DeBerkey, seconded by Ms. Hausfeld to also discuss an executive session ongoing litigation. Are there any remarks? Clerk, will you please call the roll on?
Mr. DeBerke.
Aye.
Mr. Ray Carverson.
Aye.
Mr. Schuldenauer.
Aye.
Mr. Bob Carverson.
Aye.
Mrs. Bettinghouse.
Aye.
Mrs. Miller.
Aye.
Ms. Housefeld.
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Council will also go into executive session to discuss ongoing litigation. Anything else? Good? Okay.
That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Treasurer, Mr. Ungree.
Mr. President, this evening I received the First State Bank statement for the Memorial Fund. The total there as of the end of February, so February 28th, 2021, totaled $5,656.98. And that concludes my report.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Mr. DeBerkey.
John, I don't know if Jonathan, the Chamber of Commerce used to have money in the bank. Do you get the statements for Chamber of Commerce, or Jonathan, do you get them?
Mr. President, one did appear recently, so yes, it is in existence at West Banco. I don't have the exact amount off the top of my head, but that is a goal for this year to hopefully look at the idea of potentially reviving that, so I will check into that, but it is still there.
Okay, remember Paul Myers looked at it, and I think he somehow he got his name on the account, I think.
Mr. President, I'll do everything, we'll make sure that gets removed.
All right. Safety and Service Director, Mr. Paul.
Thank you, Mr. President. Please be aware that the service email was hacked. Everything has been corrected, except for all the apologies. Those of you who have received the email, even though we may not know you, you have my sincerest apology. You are not compromised, rest assured. You also may ignore and delete it. When things like this happen, you feel responsible even though it's not your fault. Next would be, please mark your calendars for the week of April 12th through the 15th as the week to put out old tires. Set them out with your trash and we will take care of the rest. This is the only time of the year we do this. We wanted to discuss the Ross Park. The land along First Base line is slipping, which means the property of the residents along the Ross Avenue is coming with it. Paul and I have been looking into what can be done about it. Paul has been able to get us a discounted rate on the blocks that are needed. The company, Gerke Electric, has helped us immensely with that. We found a excavator who will actually build it up, have the wall put up, and he doesn't care if we buy our own blocks. And then the landscaping will occur after that. The total on that would be like $68,000. So you'll need to think about that, and
Mr. President,
sooner or later it's
Mr.
gonna be
DeBerke.
necessary.
Tommy, I know it was on the ODNR's webpage. They got $6 million in grants available for playground type repairs and stuff.
Mr. President? Just give me the information, I'll look into it. Yeah.
And then with a $68,000 price tag, does they have to go out for bid?
Mr. President,
Paul,
it does not have to go out for bid because we're purchasing the block, the landscaper is separate, and Gerke Electric's doing the rest, so it's all under 50,000.
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettingham.
Tommy, while you're talking about Ross Park, out in the outfield, as you're coming from the parking lot, and if you walk down that hill to go down by the track, it's all muddy, and there's like a lot of holes there too. What is that? Is that part of this?
That is part of it, but what's happening there is the job isn't finished for the LED lights yet. So they're waiting for a Duke inspector to come out, and then after all that's been passed and the electric has been passed, then it gets reseeded.
Okay.
It gets all completed, and that's in the other bid. Let's talk a little more so everybody understands what happened to the emails. They sent it to an invoice to a company, a response to an invoice to a company, immediately got hit with 141 emails returned to me. Out of the 141, each one of them sent over 400 to that. So we got a hold of the bank, Peggy and Jake and myself. I got Keith, our investigator, called him up and had him come up, and then got a hold of Eric, S&H Consulting. So everything was shut down, and the only thing left to do, and it's taken me quite a few hours, is to get rid of all the undeliverable, all the spam, and everything that's coming back to me. So I haven't got emails for several hours, but now that's all back up and going. And you can't believe the phone calls from people. And we actually had one person come down with a check wanting to pay. And it's like, no, we're fine here. So everything is fine, except council members will get a thing. I'll probably just email it to you if everybody's okay with that. You have to follow these instructions. It is simple. Once you log into your email, you'll go to my account, and I'll help you, and add. And then it'll send a text to your phone. Like you probably have a bank account like that where they send you, and then you have to. That's where we're going now. It's just an extra security. And this was no one's fault. It came in. The way I spoke to my son-in-law also, who is an IT expert. He's the chief cyber of security for another company, and he goes, what they do, he goes, it's like at the beginning of the month, they used to go around to mailboxes and steal the checks from the elderly. And this is on the same level, only they hit the bigger companies. So what they're doing is interrupting your conversation, your email, they follow it in, hit it, find a way to forward it, and then it looks authentic. The only thing is there will be one change somewhere in that email that's not correct. This, in our case, it was a phone number, and a small I was not a small I. It was either a capital I or a small L. And luckily everything settled out, and the way there was, without mentioning anything, a bank caught the minor difference and refused to pay. So how, I don't understand that either. How they knew or how they picked up on it. They picked up on it and withheld it. So that's after we stopped the check, sent the money, got the money back, resent the money, and then the bank finally stopped it and gave it back to us. So that's where all this had went. So now I got several more hours of, but you know, hey, just go brain dead and we'll be fine.
So Tommy,
So if you get any emails, just
so just to confirm, if something was sent to somebody's personal email and they did not click on anything in it, you simply delete.
Yes, you delete, even if you opened it, chances are, with your systems, our personal systems, you would see nothing. So it's encrypted. So when it goes through, a larger company has those programs and they can come up, but most of the companies that are texting me said it went to junk, they just deleted it. If it was for real, please resubmit it. So, or a lot of companies say it hit the spam box, they don't pay attention to that. So yeah, everybody is safe.
Mr. President.
Mr. DeBerke.
Tommy, so every time we log into our email account, we got to get a new code? Or is that just a one-time deal?
I believe, now, the way we do here at City Hall is we log in and we just allow it to log in automatically. So no, unless you reboot your computer, that's when you'll get the code, because you're going to try to log back into our server to get to 365, or Microsoft server. It's not ours. It's actually Microsoft that got hit. So yeah, it's 365.com. All that'll be in on the instructions. And it wasn't real hard. So, but if you have trouble, just call me and I'll make it harder.
Mr. President,
Ms. Southwell.
just call me down to City Hall when you're ready to help me.
All right. All right. That's it then, Mr. Paul?
Yes, that concludes my report.
All right, thank you. Tax Commissioner/Administrator, Ms. Helms.
Good evening, everybody. I've got a couple things to go through, so bear with me. I had the monthly report for February 2021. Tax collections for February were $495,188. Refunds for February were $150,834. The village is down 19.84% in tax revenue from February of 2020. This is due to many things. Payments for withholdings have been late by many companies. Many companies are down in withholding and net profit. Problems with uploaded information for 2020 from the Ohio Business Gateway wasn't posted correctly in our system. I'm finding that doing the recons. Restructuring of a major company, and going forward for this year, it's going to be hard to compare the 2020 monthly revenues to 2021. Usually I do that and I give you guys a percentage, but as you know, the late file, or the filing date was moved to July 15th, and everything was shifted last year, so it's not going to compare the same way. So kind of look at the 2019, which I always have that on the report. There'll be the 2019, the 2020, just kind of use all three to look at it. For our delinquent taxes, $58,257 is with capital recovery. $103,634 is with our attorney for judgment garnishment collection work. $9,340 is with the Ohio Attorney General's office. The e-file system is up and running. You must submit your supporting documents either by attachment on the e-file site or by sending in a copy of your documents to the tax office. Tax returns will not be finalized until you receive your W-2 and 1040 information. The ability to pay current taxes online is coming any day. That's what they told me this morning. It'll be any day that'll be available. You will not be able to pay your delinquent taxes, though, through that portal. Anything that's in capital recovery or with a judgment or the Ohio Attorney General's office, that has to be paid separately, as we don't have that debt. Contact me if you're unsure on how or where to pay. Also, a reminder, in-person St. Bernard tax assistance is by appointment only. We're not going to be able to assist in that tax preparation the week of the 12th through the 15th, so please file early. Do not email your tax return to the tax office by email. Please use the e-file portal located on the St. Bernard webpage under the tax department. A lot of times when people email their tax return, it goes into a spam folder. Our system doesn't like Gmail. A lot of times I just don't get it. So do not email me your tax return. And then, as always, call me if you have any questions. My number is 242-7710. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President,
Mr. DeBerke.
the major company restructuring, is that going to be a blip just right now, or is it going to be something carry out the rest of the year?
Mr. President?
Oh.
I think they're getting started. They're just kind of settling in, and I noticed that was a smaller amount that came in one month, and then another payment just came in recently for that January month. So it was like split in half. So I think they're just trying to get settled, and that would explain some of the shortfall in February. February is a bad month anyway. But I did put quite a bit of time into looking into, what's going on, why is it so low? And those items that I had just read off were some of the reasons why.
Okay. We'll move to reports of standing committees. Anything else, Mr.
No.
Burke? No. Okay. Safety, Mr. Ray Culberson.
Thanks, Mr. President. At the Fire Department report for January 2021, there were a total of 52 fire incidents. Some details include 6 structural fires, 1 vehicle fire, 6 auto accidents, and 6 hazmat incidents. Mutual aid on the fire side was given to Norwood 4 times, Elmwood Place 5 times, Little Miami 2 times, and we received mutual aid from Elmwood Place 1 time. On the EMS side of things, there were 95 total EMS incidents. Details of interest include 6 non-breathers, 3 unconscious, 7 auto accidents, and 1 overdose. Mutual aid was given 23 times to Elmwood, 2 times to Little Miami, 1 time to Cincinnati, 1 time to Norwood, 1 time to Deer Park, and there was no mutual aid received. That concludes my report.
Thank you.
President,
Mr. Zaberki.
Ray, the mutual aid to Elmwood 23 times, is that paramedics or fire and paramedic? Do you know?
That's just EMS. The fire was the first half that I read. Fire to Elmwood Place was 5 times. EMS was 23.
There you go. All right. Service, Mr. Schultmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've got the Service Department report for February 2021. We had 8 trucks placed at residents, 21 dumpsters placed at residences, 296 special pickups at residences, 148.67 tons of garbage taken to the landfill. As far as recycling, we had 34.32 tons of recycled material and 2,280 pounds of scrap metal. That concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Public improvements, Mr. Bob Culbertson.
Thank you, Mr. President. The next CIC meeting is March 23rd at 6 p.m. For anyone who's interested, the CIC is accepting, the request for proposals for property that the CIC owns. We're looking for someone to mow those lawns between April 15th and November 15th of this year. So stop by City Hall to pick up the packet that lists out all the information that you need in order to submit a bid. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Laws, contracts, and claims, Ms. Bettinghouse.
Thank you, Mr. President. Laws, Contracts, and Claims Committee will be meeting on Wednesday, March 24th at 6:30 down in the lower level here at Municipal Hall. On that meeting, we'll continue on with the discussion of the non-discrimination ordinance.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I apologize to interrupt, just to
That's right.
piggyback on something that Mr. Culberson stated. The bid packets are due by 5 p.m. on Monday, the 22nd, just so you're aware, just so that if anyone wants to pick one up, they need to get that resubmitted. Thank you.
Thank you. Marketing, Ms. Miller.
Thank you, Mr. President. I apologize for being unable to attend the last council meeting, so I do have several updates from the Thrive meeting in February 2021. You can still receive for your children UMC lunch boxes on Mondays from 3 to 5 p.m. The library is also hosting virtual story time Wednesdays at 10:30 a.m. Information on the library's website. For tax prep, call 211 to find out more about tax prep services being offered at the library locations through the United Way. If you need technology help by appointment, stop in or call the branch at 369-4462 to make an appointment for one-on-one help with a phone or tablet or assistance on a public computer. They are also offering Take and Makes, which are free art and craft kits for kids, teens, and adults to take home and complete at home. There is also up-to-date vaccine information on the library's website. Be sure to check them out at cincinnatilibrary.org. We are also working on a We Thrive website that will be St. Bernard focused. Once we get that up and running, I will make sure to announce that in our newsletter as well as our next scheduled council meeting. This concludes my report.
Thank you. Business and industry, Ms. Housefeld.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report.
Thank you. Anyone in the audience wish to address council? All right, at this time, well, let's do this. I show 3 ordinances then for next week, or next council meeting. Codified ordinance update, the contract with Elmwood Place for emergency services, and an ordinance with additional appropriation, capital equipment fund, and a payout line item with a new line item. The next council meeting will be Thursday, March 25th at 7 p.m. And at this time, council will go into executive session to discuss collective bargaining and ongoing litigation. Council will come back to order. Council met in executive session to discuss collective bargaining and ongoing litigation. At this time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President,
Mr. Ray Culberson.
make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second that.
A motion by Mr. Ray Culberson, second by Ms. Hausler to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? So ordered.